Hello, good morning, everybody. Nice to see so many of you. Um, usual drill for one of our webinars. If you could find the chat box, should be along the bottom of your screen. Open it up, and in there, tell us whether can you see us okay, can you hear us okay, and can you see the screen? That would be great. Hello, Hardiel. Good morning. Hello, Katie, Daryl. Susan, brilliant. Oh, thank you, Ruth. Hello, Ruth. Yep, so it looks like everyone can see and hear us. So that's a good start. And everyone's found the chat box.
Like to see some familiar names there. Hello, everybody.
Yeah, same here. People I haven't spoken to for a long time. Nice to have you all back. Yeah.
Oh, hi, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
He pops up everywhere, that bloke, doesn't he?
Oh. So, hello, David. Yeah, so everyone is finding that they can see and hear us okay. I get around. It's like I don't have a proper job. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, just reading out Chris's comments there is funny. That's great. So there will be a few more people probably just trickling in. But for now, it's time to make a start, so we will do.
Mhm.
So it's lovely to see, as San said, lovely to see so many familiar names. Thank you all for giving up a little bit of time this morning for coming on to this live session. Really, really excited to welcome back San Harper, who has done mindfulness training with us previously. I'm one of their ex-pupils as well in terms of mindfulness. So I've done both the courses that we will be highlighting today as well. Should you want to learn and get involved with more webinars and more mindfulness, sorry, I got my words right today. So I'm going to hand over to San, and she's going to take the session from here in just a moment. But just before I do, if you have any questions or anything, could you please pop them into the chat box as you've done already today? So you've all found that. And what we'll do is we'll answer the questions once we've got to a certain point in the webinar. So feel free to ask your questions, pop them in there, and then we'll come back and answer those in a short while. Okay, so Sam.
Thank you. Lovely. Thank you very much, Olivia. So hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm San Harper from the Guild of Mindful Driver Trainers. I'm based in Gloucestershire. And I'd just like to say thank you to everybody for coming along today. And thank you to everyone at the DIA and especially to Olivia for helping to facilitate the session today. So I'm here to tell you about mindfulness. Some people have got preconceived ideas about what mindfulness is. So hopefully that will today's session will kind of give you a little bit of a clearer picture if you're a little bit unfamiliar. Before we dive into this session today, I'd really like to invite you to join me into just a very brief grounding practice. And this is just simply an opportunity for you to notice where you're at right now, just to shift from the being mode of doing that we're frequently in during the day, and just to check in to the present moment. So if you can imagine that you've been walking around with two suitcases, one labeled the past and the other one is labeled the future, and you can just set them both down just for a short while during this session. So just taking a moment now just to find a comfortable and upright posture, as if you've been pulled up by a piece of string. And you can close your eyes or lower your gaze, whichever feels okay for you. And just take a moment to notice what it feels like to simply stop. Nowhere else to be and nothing else to do than just to be here in this shared virtual space right now. Just taking a moment just to connect with the surface beneath you. So you might notice where your feet are on the surface, perhaps the floor beneath you. Just bring awareness to where the chair is making contact with your sitting bones, the back of the legs. Noticing where the back, perhaps if you're sat in a chair, is making contact with your back. And just bringing awareness to your body. There's a gentle scan through the body and just noticing if you're holding on to any tension today. We often hold tension in the jaw or the shoulders, quite unknowingly sometimes. And just bringing awareness now to the breath. So breathing in for the full duration of the in-breath and the full duration of the out-breath. And perhaps seeing if you can just let go of any tension or holding that might be here today, if that feels okay for you. Bring awareness to the weather pattern. What's the weather like? The mental weather pattern today. Sometimes we can feel like we're sat under a cloud some days. Just simply noticing, without any judgment, as to just how things are for you today. And just being aware of the whole body sitting here now. As you breathe, just taking a moment to notice some of the sounds that you can hear in your environment. Just noticing the gentle ebb and flow of the in-breath and the out-breath. Noticing too any thoughts that arise. We're not here to try to eliminate thoughts, just simply acknowledge anything that comes in and then just see if you can let it pass. Just being aware of your whole experience now, the whole body sitting here in this shared space. And just bring awareness now to the breath at the nostrils, the corners of the air. And just a couple more gentle breaths. And we can begin. Maybe just notice if you're feeling any differently now to what you did when you arrived. So we will now begin the session fully. So I'm just going to ask Olivia to connect to our next slide, please. Because I want to tell you a little bit about a chap called Jon Kabat-Zinn. Can you hear me, Olivia?
Yes.
Thank you. So yeah, Jon Kabat-Zinn. He is an American. Oh, sorry, this is me. We've done this, but yeah. So I've been teaching online for 7 years. So most of you know who I am anyway, but you can always ask me at the end if you need to know anything else. Jon Kabat-Zinn, he's an American molecular biologist and meditation teacher who played a key role in bringing mindfulness into mainstream Western medicine and psychology. In 1979, he founded the mindfulness-based stress reduction, known as MBSR program, at the University of Massachusetts Medical Center. And this groundbreaking program was designed to help patients manage chronic pain and stress-related conditions using techniques which are rooted in Buddhist mindfulness meditation, but it was presented in a secular, science-based framework. MBSR continues to set the foundations for how mindfulness is taught and applied in healthcare and beyond. The way that Jon Kabat-Zinn describes mindfulness is it's as if you're paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, and in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. And he also adds as if your life depends on it. I get to the next slide, please, Olivia. Thank you. So during this session, we're just going to be really having a look at what mindfulness actually is and how it can be so very powerful. So mindfulness is the basic human ability to be fully present and aware of our thoughts, our urges, our emotions, and our surroundings. And through this present moment awareness, we learn to find a relationship with what's happening rather than just trying to change things, particularly ones that we don't like. Good experiences we learn to savor and appreciate. And negative experiences, we change what we can, but we let go of what we cannot change. Mindfulness is a quality that we're all born with already. It's not something we have to magically conjure up. We just need to learn how to practice it and access it again. So can I have the next slide? Thanks, Olivia. So mindfulness is not the absence of thought. And this is something that can often be misunderstood. It's not about emptying our minds of anything. It's noticing the thoughts that are here and simply learning how to unhook ourselves from our identification with them. And this is very different from pushing thoughts away. It's how we relate to thoughts rather than the absence. So with the paying attention, we're actively noticing what's happening rather than being on autopilot. The on purpose bit means that it's intentional. In the present moment, where we're not necessarily dwelling on the past and we're not necessarily trying to plan and get things right for the future. And non-judgmentally, so we're observing our thoughts and sensations like an impartial observer without necessarily labeling them as good or bad. So as I said, it's not about emptying the mind at all, but it's about noticing what's here with an attitude of curiosity and kindness. You can go to the next slide. Thanks, Olivia. This is just a little notice cards anyway. We've got the next one. Thank you. So just like thank you. Just like we take vitamins to support our immune system, mindfulness supports our mental resilience. You might not feel a dramatic effect straight away, but over time, it can certainly help your mind to feel clearer and calmer and more capable of handling life's ups and downs. We can think of it like taking the mind to the gym. So gym for our emotions. And when you practice mindfulness, you start to build your emotional muscle. So it gives you a bit more strength to pause and breathe and respond rather than simply going into our usual patterns of reactivity. Mindfulness, I love my analogies, and mindfulness can be a bit like switching on the defogger in the car. It doesn't change the road ahead, but it can help us to see more clearly and drive more safely through life's challenges. Our minds are a little bit like gardens, and what we feed and water grows. Mindfulness waters the seeds of calm, patience, and presence. So just maybe think about some of the seeds that you water regularly. We often think about physical fitness, but our emotional and mental fitness are just as crucial. And mindfulness gives us the tools to pause before reacting, to feel our emotions. It's not like we're not trying to push anything away, or we can't change the road ahead. We can't necessarily change things, but we can learn to feel these emotions without being completely consumed by them. We learn to shift our focus of attention. So when things that we're dwelling on are really not helpful, we start to recognize that that's what's happening, and we're able to make choices that were maybe a little bit more helpful to us. And we can make choices from a place of clarity rather than impulse. So we're just going to take a few moments to pause and explore mindfulness in a simple, practical way. You won't need anything special, just your attention. If you do have a pen and paper nearby, you can feel free to grab it. So that's absolutely fine. But if you don't, you can just reflect quietly in your mind. And I'll just allow a bit of time for you to do that. So just take a moment now just to think about what brought you here today. And when you hear the word mindfulness, what comes to mind? And when you feel that a learner is struggling or making repeated mistakes, have a little think about what actually happens in your body and in your mind at that moment. The purpose of mindfulness is that it builds awareness of our internal reactions, such as tension, frustration, how we breathe. And this awareness opens the door to a mindful self regulation. Just have a little think about what happens for you. And how do you usually reset yourself between lessons or after a challenging situation? Do you reset yourself at all? Just have a little think about your experience. And this is really just to encourage some reflection on personal recovery practices. Mindfulness can be a very quick and effective tool for this. Can you think of a time now where staying calm helped your learner stay calm too? And this reinforces the idea that our emotional state is contagious, which I think as a driving instructor, we don't already know this. I think it's a really, really important thing to recognize, because a calm instructor helps to create a calm learner. So what do you do when you notice your patience is running low? And which part of the threat system do you recognize the most in yourself under stress? And can we gain any insight here into any reactive habits and the space that mindfulness can create between feeling and acting? And how often do we bring attention to our own breathing during lessons? It's something that we're even aware of. Are we breath holding? And we can introduce the breath as a grounding anchor, simple, portable, and available during work for not only ourselves, but for our students. And I'll be sharing a few things with you a bit later about some of the simple things that we can use to help us to share the practice of mindfulness without even really using the word mindfulness. And now consider the kind of emotional tone that you want to get inside of the car. How do you maintain that? And mindfulness helps us to consciously shape the learning environment through emotional regulation. I frequently get asked, well, how do I share mindfulness as an instructor? How do I actually share it if I'm practicing mindfulness? And really the most important thing to understand is that if you're practicing mindfulness, you are sharing it, because it filters through you purely from the energy and the vibe and the demeanor and the what you're bringing into the car. You're bringing that with you, whether that's consciously or unconsciously. So even just simply having a mindfulness practice of some description of your own will filter through. It's not even necessarily needs to be a structured thing. And there's certain practical practices that you can use, of course, but simply having your own practice yourself really, really help. So let's just think then about a small practice that you could maybe build into your day to help support your mental health and emotional well-being. Maybe inviting a sustainable habit of even just 30 seconds between lessons, which can make a real difference. And the grounding practice that I shared with you just before we started the session. Just something as simple as that. Just checking in with the sensations of the body, the thoughts in the mind, what the environment around us is like, what we can see, what we can smell, what we can hear. It just gives us a moment just to kind of just come out of that constant mental chatter that most of us or many of us live with on a daily basis. Just gives us time to decompress. The mindfulness doesn't require long periods of stillness or silence. It can be very easily integrated seamlessly into our day in very practical ways to help support our emotional balance. I'm going to share with you 3 very simple ways that we can use mindfulness. The first one is to set the tone by taking a 60-second pause before you even start the engine. And you could close your eyes if you felt that it was safe to do that, and just take between 3 and 5 slow breaths, just bringing attention to how your body feels. And you can ask yourself, what energy do I want to bring into the car today? It's just setting an intention. You're setting yourself up before you even start. Well, why does this help? Well, setting this intention is a little bit like having a warm-up exercise before you go, when you go to the gym, or before you exercise, you do some warm-ups. Cool, and you cool down. So it's just preparing yourself, really, just like you would for physical exercise. And between lessons, you can take some micro mindfulness moments. And we can use the break as a reset rather than from reaching the phone for the phone immediately. You could maybe sit still for a few moments with your feet on the floor, or you take a few breaths, noticing the sounds around you. Another really useful tool and technique, some of you may have already heard of, is box breathing, where you very simply inhale for 4 seconds. You can almost like you're drawing a box. So you inhale for 4 seconds, hold the breath for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, and repeat. The only thing I would say about breathing exercises, particularly if you're inviting anybody to join you, it's always an invitation, by the way. It's never instructing anybody to anything. It's always an invitation. It's always worth just checking that there are no difficulties with regards to anyone's respiratory system or breathing. Some people just don't feel comfortable paying close attention to their breathing. So it's just worth mentioning that. And that might be the case for you as well. And if it doesn't feel comfortable for you to focus on your breathing for any reason whatsoever, what you could try as an alternative is to simply just notice the feeling of the sensations of the air on the tip of your nostrils. So draw the focus in to the focal point of your nose. So you just feel the breath in the nostrils. And these techniques can help to calm the nervous system, and it stops the stress from building from lesson to lesson. And after a lesson, you could maybe even reflect briefly, take a minute to mentally ask yourself, well, what went well? What could I do differently next time? And how am I feeling right now? Perhaps even taking a moment to jot things down in a notebook or an app. And it's helpful to strengthen our self-awareness, and it creates learning moments for us and not just for our pupils. So in summary, you can think of mindfulness as a mental maintenance check. So you maintain your cars daily, you check the mirrors are adjusted, you drive off, you make sure you've got enough fuel and you've got enough oil. You could think of mindfulness as checking your own dashboard. The fuel could relate to your energy levels, so you're checking how resourced and resilient you're feeling. The brakes could perhaps relate to your reactions, how reactive are you feeling today? And the engine, perhaps that could relate to your thoughts. So they kind of, you think of almost like a snow globe. Somebody shaking up that snow globe and the snow's flying around everywhere. Chaotic thoughts, or has everything kind of settled down And it's simply this just checking in. You know, we frequently just act, we go through the day on autopilot. We're not even aware of a lot of these physical, emotional, mental responses that are happening to us. So we've got a little bit of information about some courses that are coming up. Before we do that, we're going to just see if anybody would like to ask some questions. And then once I've answered some questions, I would like to share a meditation with you, which is known as a formal practice. So there in mindfulness, there's the formal practices, which are intentionally coming to sit. So for example, you do an awareness of breath or a body scan, meditation, or even mindful movement, but it's an intentional practice. It's informal. It's a formal practice, and then there's informal practices which we can do anywhere at all in the day. It could be simply noticing when you're washing up what the water feels like on your hands, noticing the sensation, what it feels like, what the bubbles smell like, what the bubbles look like. So we can bring this kind of paying close attention, noticing the experience, physical, emotional, and the thoughts and urges. We can apply that to all sorts of things. The world becomes a much more interesting place. We start to practice mindfulness. We notice all kinds of random stuff that we probably just wandered past before on autopilot. The richness of life certainly can improve sometimes when we're paying attention to certain things. So would anybody like to share some questions? I can't see the screen with the questions, but I'm sure Olivia can see if there's anything that's come in.
I can. Nobody has asked anything as yet. I think they're all chilling out.
Good, that's good.
So,
Happy. If anybody, I'll
so
give you a couple of minutes or a minute if people. I'll just have a quick look.
yeah,
A
or
few comments. Yeah. Let's see.
yeah. So, Harple said this reminds me of Pits and Pets: performance inhibiting thoughts, performance enhancing thoughts. He's referenced Jed and Claire Wilmot on there. So yeah, if anyone wants to make any comments or ask any questions, then you know we can always pick them up at the end. So any
Yeah, certainly.
time you can just pop something in the chat, that'd be great. Chris, awesome presentation. I love listening to Sand talk. Yeah, absolutely with you that on there. As I say, I'm one of Sand's ex students with mindfulness, and it really does work. It really does help. I've
Well,
calmed right down. Not that I was that anxious anyway, but I've just gone, oh, in this first half an hour, and I didn't realise I was up kind of a little bit clenchy, but I was, and now I'm kind of okay. This is nice. I could listen to you all afternoon. Stuart, I suggest can't breathe between the cockpit drill and safe engine starting. Any good? He's
sure.
asking
I
for
mean,
feedback on his.
yeah. What I quite like the analogy of checking the weather, and my pupils think it's quite funny. They're used to it now. So often they'll get in the car and I say, "What's the weather like today?" And we talk about the weather, and I say, "What's the internal barometer? What's the internal weather like today?" And it really depends what they're bringing. If they get into the car and they're feeling pretty good and they're pretty relaxed, and they share that with me, then that might be fine just to continue as we would. But if they're bringing with them a stress that's happened previously, or a worrying thought, or just anxiety about the lesson, it can certainly help to just invite them. I said, would you like to just take a moment just to, well, it's almost like shaking a snow globe. Let's just pretend we've got that snow globe and let that snow settle. Would that be helpful? And they usually say, well, yes, that would. And I'd say something like, would you like me to should we do a little bit of breathing together? This is something I do when I'm feeling a bit stressed. Does that feel okay for you? Does practicing focusing on the breath feel okay for you? I'd always check that. They usually say yes, it does. And then just taking a moment, really, just to breathe slowly and deeply. Certainly, does being mindful help pupils have a more realistic view of readiness? I think mindfulness has it helps people have a realistic view of everything, because it kind of, what it does is, it because you become the impartial observer, you watch yourself. So you start to, even when you're being reactive, even when you're behaving or speaking in a way, or you feel a certain way, it enables you to step back and almost go, oh, there I am doing that thing that I do. It certainly helps you to recognize where you're at mentally and physically. Um, Keeping up some of these. Can you clarify the difference between mindfulness and relaxation? Yes, certainly. This is often quite misunderstood. Mindfulness doesn't equal relaxation always. Mindfulness, as John Kabat-Zinn explains it, is paying attention in a particular way and on purpose. Now, we're shining a light on our experience, and sometimes that's not great. Sometimes when we stop and think and tune in, our experience is not always pleasant. Sometimes we might have pain, sometimes we might have emotional distress. So this turning towards, it's like turning into the skid. You know, as driving instructors, we teach this stuff on a physical level, turning into the skid. And it's the same with mindfulness. It's this turning towards difficulty. And through that, the practice of mindfulness and compassion, which I believe is a very important component, we learn to be with our experiences, whatever they are. And almost the relaxation and the calm becomes a byproduct. It's a bit like when you go to the gym, you don't start off strong. You wouldn't expect to do a few exercises and then be stronger. It's a process. But certainly over time, what happens is you start to change the certain elements in your brain. So the parts of the brain that are responsible for stress become smaller. It's a bit like I said about watering the flowers. You reap what you sow. So if you practice mindfulness and meditation practices, you start to actually, it's been shown, and it's been shown on brain scans of people that meditate for long periods of time, you actually shrink the amygdala, which is the fear center of the brain. And so you naturally become more able to manage stress and anxiety. That's a very simple explanation of something that is a huge subject. Hopefully that sheds a little bit of light on that. Susan says, I used the other day with a very nervous lady who hadn't driven in 14 years. I wasn't as good. Definitely seemed to help her and me. I've seen your presentation before. Oh, lovely. Thank you, Susan. Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes we put pressure on ourselves to fix things, don't we, and to make them feel better. But certainly think with mindfulness, it is just an invitation. It's an invitation to just hold space, and simply that holding space for somebody, just to take a moment, just to settle and just decompress before they start the lesson, or when something difficult and challenging has occurred. You're just holding space for them, just to kind of to be with whatever's here. So again, it's not, and this is what that's so conflicting. It's it's a real paradox, that element of mindfulness. It's that being with difficulty rather than pushing it away, which can be quite a hard thing to kind of get your head around to start with. I used to say the saying, smell the roses, blow at the candle. Yeah. I mean, anything at all that works for them. Yeah. Humming is a good one. I've got people that likes to hum because it makes them focus on the breath in a roundabout kind of way. Turning into the skid, yeah, I think it sits nicely alongside there's no such thing as a failure, only feedback from NLP. Yeah, that's it. That there's start to notice a lot of crossovers really with these kind of practices. So lovely stuff. So I'd like to, if I'm very happy to yes, thank you, David. Started following some Buddhism practices, very familiar. Yeah, it is. Particularly on the longer courses. I haven't done one, did one last year, I think, MBSR, humming triggers breastfeeding response, relaxing the face and body. That's right. Yeah, and it stimulates the vagal nerve too, that connects to our nervous system. Interesting stuff, isn't it? I mean, like I said, we've only got an hour today, but there are longer sessions. We've got a 3-hour one, which we'll talk about in just a moment. And there's also the 6-week course, Mindfulness and Compassion for Driver and Rider Trainers. Stuart says a client of mine came up with increase release with physical tension. Yeah, very helpful. Absolutely. That's a good one. So you kind of start with the clench the fists, let go, and start noticing that difference. Yeah, there's lots of things out there. And there's also so many things online. I mean, there's apps, there's Calm, there's Headspace, there's Insight Timer. There's loads of free resources out there if anybody is interested in exploring mindfulness a little bit more. There's all sorts of things we can use. But like I say, I definitely believe that we have to embody it. It's no good us talking about mindfulness and trying to get somebody to calm down through breathing techniques or whatever if we're not practicing that ourselves. We have to be authentic with this with ourselves. That's a very, with regards to any mindfulness practice really, and as mindfulness teacher, embodiment is so important as well. So without further ado, I'd love to share this meditation with you. Many people that don't practice meditation often say that their mind is very busy, and they say, I was thinking about all sorts of things and I found it hard to be with the practice. Well, this practice is called awareness of thoughts. So it can be quite interesting to literally make that the subject of our mindfulness meditation practice. So just inviting you to find your posture. You can just imagine you've been pulled up by a piece of string, sitting comfortably and upright. A long spine and a straight neck. Maybe the head just tucked down a little bit. And just become aware of how you're feeling in the body. Just noticing if you're holding on to any tension in the jaw, the neck and shoulders, the torso, legs, arms or hands. Notice the muscles in the face and any tension that you might be holding on to right now, if that feels okay for you. Maybe bring a little bit of softness to those areas. Becoming aware of how the body feels right now in this moment. And what emotions are there? We're often so busy and distracted that we don't pay any attention to how we're feeling in the body. And yet the body always gives us signals. So just becoming conscious and mindful and aware of how we're feeling right now in the body. Just noticing any particular sensations, emotions or feelings, and just see if you can just be aware of what's here right now. You might have places of discomfort, and just holding all of these sensations in our awareness, just allowing them to be here. And sometimes they can just shift a little bit or transform. We're not trying to push anything away, just becoming aware of every feeling and sensation, every place of discomfort that might be here right now. Becoming aware of our thoughts. What's the flavour of your thinking? What kind of thoughts are here? Often referred to as the weather. What's the weather like today? Notice how the mind comments on everything. You might notice how the mind tries to run after every thought that arises. What kind of thoughts are coming into the mind at the moment? And just see if you can allow all of these thoughts to be there, to arise and to pass. We're the non judgmental observer, and we see all the thoughts come and go. We try not to get involved in anything or do a dance with any of those thoughts. We come back to the open presence, where we can just sit and be present in a way that maybe a mirror is present. The mirror simply reflects everything that arises and passes without any kind of judgment or holding on to it. A non reactive monitor of the thoughts arising in the mind. And what can be helpful here is labeling our thoughts, at least for a little while. The label might be past thoughts, future thoughts, planning thoughts, or just imaginary thoughts. So as soon as you realize there's a thought arising in the mind, see if you can just label it, let it go. Come back to your open presence, just monitoring that space, and simply wait for the next thought to rise and pass. When you realize there's a thought arising in the mind, label it, let go of it, and come back to your open presence as a silent observer. And you might see the next thought arise and pass. So you can literally wait on a thought to rise in the mind. And sometimes you might find that even though you're waiting on a thought to arise, they just sneak in from all sides and you find yourself thinking again. Not a problem. As soon as you notice they're there, there's the thought, and the mind will run after it. You can label it and let go of it. And just try your best not to get involved and come back to that aware presence and spaciousness. Waiting on the next thought to arise and pass. Non-reactive monitoring of the thoughts arising in the mind, just seeing them come and go. So we can also become more aware of the gaps between our thoughts. And that's all that open present is, the gaps between the thoughts. And sometimes it might seem that there are hardly any gaps. And other times, there might be times where the gaps can become a bit longer. So what happens if one thought has ended and the other one hasn't quite started yet? Just noticing what it's like to be in that space of open presence. We aren't trying to empty the mind, we're just waiting to see what comes along next. We can label the thoughts, see them as a non-judgmental observer, coming and going. When you find yourself in a thought again, you don't need to judge or criticize, you don't need to analyze or dwell. As long as it's helpful to you, just label the thought and let go of it. Thoughts can be like clouds, very fleeting and short-lived. So the more attention we give to the thought, the bigger it gets. So just for now, we try not to do a dance with any of those thoughts. Just a non-reactive monitoring, watching the thoughts come and go. Awareness which sees that thoughts there, rising and passing. The awareness is not the thought itself. So if you get caught up in a thought, then you can just make a decision to step back out of it and come back to the spaciousness and the presence in which you can see all of these thoughts arise and pass. And when you're ready, just bringing your awareness back to your hands and fingers, your feet and toes. And you can start to move them gently. Maybe have a gentle stretch if that feels okay, whichever feels right for you. And then at your own pace, when you're ready, just allowing the eyes, if you have them closed, you can open them. So we come to the end of this practice. Okay, thank you. Thank you, David. I've just looked at your comment there. Yeah, I'm glad that was helpful. So yeah, we've got just a few more minutes left. I hope that was helpful. I'm not sure if anybody after that practice. I've got a few things you could think about. Actually, I did prepare for this. Okay, so have a little time to think then. Maybe consider what sensations or emotions or thoughts you noticed during the practice. And then perhaps just take a moment just to reflect how difficult or easy was it for you to stay anchored in the present moment? And why do you think your experience was as it was? And if your mind wandered, reflecting on how you brought it back and what was that like? And how you can use mindfulness, mindful breathing, or grounding with anxious pupils or for yourself in real time. And what is the one insight or practice that you're taking away from today's session? Having some quiet reflection on that, how that was for you. Amanda says labeling thoughts was a good way to deal with them. Definitely be doing that, yes. Thank you, Amanda. So we've got a few minutes. I have got a little poem at my sleeve if we've got time. But otherwise, let's just see if anybody would like to anything in the comments. Timothy Galway's Inner Game books, just self one and self two, narrator and actor. Yeah, that's also an observer. Yeah, I get that. Sounds like it would be. Yeah, becoming the impartial observer. Eckhart Tolle. This was really a epiphany, I suppose you could call it, for me. When I had to listen to it because it's quite heavy going. The Power of Now. I listened to the audiobook by Eckhart Tolle, and he talks about the ego, the egoic mind, but it's separate. We're not that. All these thoughts and the way we act and the things way we can behave. It's not really our true essence. It's these layers that kind of like come in and often through life experience, and it's just recognizing that can be quite helpful. And the power of now is recognizing that everything is impermanent, nothing stays the same. Good things we tend to want to cling to, We get upset when we lose those things, and bad things we want to repel, and so we suffer through that. And again, it's just this recognition of what that experience is. It can be very enlightening. So, okay, lovely. Thank you, Olivia. Was there anything you wanted to?
We need to just talk about if people want to get more involved with some more mindfulness.
Yes, thank you. Yes, ACT. Yes, I have looked at that. Acceptance and commitment therapy. Yeah, I've done a little bit of that. Thank you, Robert. So yeah, a little bit of mindfulness. We've got a workshop coming up. I think it's next Friday. Actually, it's 3 hours, and it's mindfulness and compassion. So we're bringing in the compassion element next week. So we're going to be talking about what it is, what mindfulness is, as well as what it isn't. Understanding basic neuroscience, learning what's really going on under the bonnet on a biochemical level, how mindfulness improves mental health, focus, attention, memory, and emotional intelligence. And mindfulness and compassion are described as being two wings of the same bird. But what does that actually mean? Well, I believe when I was trained, when I did my training to be a mindfulness teacher, I did my training in mindfulness and compassion, integrating mindfulness and compassion in professional practice. And for me, it's a vital component, because it's all well and good being aware of our experience, but if that experience is bad, the next question is probably going to be, well, now what? Now what do I do? I know it's bad. Now what? And it's the compassion practices that are really, really key, I think, with regards to how we then move forwards. Yeah, so that's the session next week. And then the 6-week session, it's really a special course, really lovely course. It's 6 weeks, 9 hours. I think it's 9 hours. And we do 6 meditations, and we have a little WhatsApp group for sharing or questions as we go. And it really is quite a special little community. We've got the main group still running now, from, I think it started years ago. I think it's been like 3 or 4 years now, I think, with about 50 ADIs on there sharing just little mindful moments. So that course is a lot more in depth, and that is going to be inviting people to start to really develop their own mindfulness practice, so they can then take it forwards with them. After the 6 weeks, it starts to become a new habit. So that's what that one is. Okay. You're booked on the 6 week. Oh, lovely. Thank you, Stuart. Yeah, I need to check my the list. Thank you. I've already booked in 6 weeks. Yeah, brilliant. I'm looking forward to it too. Thanks, Stuart.
Yeah, this one, as you know, Sam, I've been on both of yours, and the 6-week one is so worth it. Really look forward to each session. Each session's only about an hour and a half, isn't it? So
Right,
it's
yeah.
not in the evenings, and it's just a lovely thing to look forward to during the day, and it just refreshes and resets you. So highly recommend those, both of them.
We can share with you, Mandy, the 3-hour
Okay.
information.
Everything's
Go ahead.
yes, so the information is on our academy website, diacademy.co.uk. So I'll move on to the next slide, and we'll start to gradually wrap the session up, I think, because we're approaching that hour. So are there any other questions from anybody, any other comments, anything about the courses, or anything else for San, or perhaps me if I can help with anything. So while you're having to think about that, just to refresh again, information for those 2 courses are on here. As I say, diacademy.co.uk, full course information and booking. So you can go on there. If you do need to, if you do want to pick the phone up and ask some questions or email in, absolutely happy to help you with that. No problem at all. Okay. I think anything else from you, Sam, at the moment?
No, I do have. I mean, I have got a little poem. If people want to
Oh yeah,
log off, I won't be
by all
offended. I
means.
appreciate, people's time is precious. If people want to disappear, it's just a minute. It's quite a well-known poem by Rumi, and it's called The Guest House. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honourably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you
thank you,
very much.
Sam.
Thank you.
That's lovely.
Thank you.
So brilliant session. Thank you so much. I know, from all the comments, lots of people found that very, very helpful. So many questions that you've posed today to allow us just to check in with ourselves. I like the emotions are contagious. I've long believed that, and it's nice that you said that as well today. And just a few basic tips and hints and advice of how ADIs and rider trainers throughout their day can emotionally reset, before you switch the engine on, when the last people's got out the car, just before you turn the engine on, like you say, if it's safe to do so, shut your eyes for a moment or lower your gaze and just take some breaths and just, you know, think about, notice the surrounding around you and notice how the seat feels under you and, go from top to bottom of your body and just do a check. Um, and yeah, so loads of those things are just so helpful, and hopefully that will help a lot of you out today, and for the future.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, lots of good feedback. Thank you,
Lovely.
everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much for attending, and thank you, Olivia, again for hosting. Thanks. Thank you very much. Thank you for your
No
comments.
problem. Thank you so much, Sam. And yeah, we'll, as I say, diacademy.co.uk for further information on those two courses if you want to get more involved and feel, feel better, because you will. We all need a bit of that at the moment. Okay. Thank you so much, Sam, and thank you everybody for coming today. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.